Why was I so overconfident about this? I really thought that this would be like fun. Writing, why does it always seem like it's gonna be fun? It's not fun. This is going to be a vlog, which is something I don't really do. What do people do in vlogs? What do? They tell you what time it is. They tell you details that you don't really need to know about their lives. It is about 9 a.m. on January 30th. I've been awake for a lot longer than I would have liked. So there was a kind of a big snowstorm yesterday. I mean, where I live, it wasn't as bad as they said it might be, but regardless, I had to get up early to move my car for the plow, which I find super annoying. Don't you find that annoying that, like, if you live in a snowy place, and it really depends on your situation, like, do you have a house? Are you in an apartment complex? Do you park in the street? Do you have a garage? Whatever. But generally speaking, a lot of the time, it snows, and what you want to do is stay in bed all day. But what you actually have to do is get up even earlier than usual to deal with the snow. So I did that, and I'm kind of leaning in close and trying not to be too loud because my boyfriend is asleep, and I'm just an amazing partner who moved both of our cars. I'm amazing. I'm so nice. I don't usually talk about anything personal in here, but I gotta say, he does so much more than me. Does like almost all of the cooking, does more of the cleaning, does all of the driving. I do like one thing, I'm gonna brag about it for like a week. Anyways, I'm kind of tired, might need a nap today. I really like my 8 hours, my 9 hours. Last night was a 7-hour night, which it's absolutely amazing to me that there are people who only need 7 hours of sleep. The difference between 7 and 8, 8 and 9, it's profound differences for me. But I should probably tell you about what I'm doing today. So you can see the title. I haven't decided if I want to call this filling a notebook in a day or filling a notebook in 24 hours, which sounds like even more of a challenge. But let's be honest, like I just said, sleep is really important to me. I'm not staying up late to do this. This is filling a notebook in the day, one day. We're not going into night. I don't do things after the sun goes down. So I like writing challenges. I talk about National Novel Writing Month on here all the time. I do that every November since like 2015. But lately, I need to move in a new direction with my writing. So I have like 5 novel drafts. I think I have like 4 completed drafts of novels, like beginning, middle, end, various stages of revision. One of them is pretty close to querying. One of them I've only done like 1 pass through. And then there's like a 5th novel that's almost finished. Anyways, point is, I actually need to stop writing novels. I need to focus my attention on revising those novels, and then on the generative side of things, I need to do shorter stuff like flash fiction, short stories, and most importantly, poetry. You might be surprised, I talk about poetry all the time on this channel, but I actually do a lot more fiction writing. Like I said, I got like 5 novels, like I don't even know how many. This is what happens when you write one every November. So I'm super excited to refocus my attention on poetry because I haven't been writing a lot of poetry in the last like year or even 2 years. But again, I like writing challenges. Some poets like to try to do a poem a day in November to like participate in NaNoWriMo as a poet. I've never really found a good like poetry challenge, but my friend Carolyn, who I have had on this channel before, she, however many years back, I don't know when, she once orchestrated like a fill a notebook in a day thing, and I found the concept really intriguing, so that's what I'm going to try to do today. So here I have my notebook. This is my poetry notebook. I have many notebooks that are designated for different things. I've got some poetry notebooks, I have prose notebook, I have a journal, I have a gratitude journal, many notebooks with different purposes, but this is one of the poetry ones. That said, so it's not blank. So already, we're scaling back the difficulty of the challenge. I don't like to set myself goals or challenges, whatever you want to call them, that are going to be too hard. I like to set myself a challenge that is challenging, but that I'm actually going to meet. I talked about this in a Q&A video about, I think the video is called something about writer's block. In that video I talked a little bit about how like if you tell yourself you need to write for an hour a day, like you're gonna fail and you're gonna feel worse than if you set yourself a reasonable goal or even a goal that feels like too easy. So anyways, this feels like a challenge, but not too challenging. And part of the reason it's not too challenging is because this notebook is not that big and I'm writing poetry, so like I'm not gonna fill all the way left to right on every single line. And I already have filled it to here. Okay, so like we're cheating a little bit, but I still need to fill, let's see, that much. And I'm excited because I think this is going to kind of jumpstart the process of getting back into poetry. So I currently have a poetry collection I'm working on. It is, I think, 55 pages long, but I think that might include like a table of contents and an acknowledgements page, so really it's not 55 pages of poetry. And for some publishers and small presses, that is long enough, but it's like just skirting by on the lower end of the page count. A lot of places say they want at least 60 pages of poems. And also, you know, I just don't think it's the best that it can be. And there are some poems in there that like, maybe they could be revised and revived, brought back from the dead, but realistically I should probably just scrap the weaker ones and replace them. So I need to write new poems and I need them to be better than the ones that are in there. I think it'll be easier for me to cut the things that don't quite reach the caliber that I want the whole collection to reach. I think it'll be easier to cut those when I have something to replace them with, so it doesn't feel like just a net loss. Okay, so that's the goal. I've got my coffee in my writing mug. It is, like I said, now it is 9:20. It's still very early in the morning. I have the entire day to do this. I think I am going to be able to do it. Oh, and as far as like obligations for the day, the only other thing I'm doing is I have a writing Zoom with two of my friends at 6 o'clock. And so theoretically we're going to be writing or submitting, but we'll probably do that for like 20-30 minutes and then we'll probably talk for like an hour or an hour and a half. So that will cut into the day, but friendship is important. Socializing is important, people. You have to do it. You have to make the time. So again, I have the entire day minus just a couple of hours to fill this notebook with poetry or prose, you know, whatever strikes me, whatever strikes my fancy. Don't expect it all to be good. I don't even expect necessarily any of it to be good. I do hope that there will be like somewhere in the realm of maybe 5 good, like workable poems, you know, which means that's like a small percentage. I'm probably gonna have to write like many poems today, and maybe I'll get like a handful that are good, or maybe I will at least have a handful of like good lines that could start new poems. Anyways, we'll see. I will keep you posted. So I've moved to my boyfriend's room because it's warmer. Do you happen to hear that noise? Can you hear that? So yeah, fun fact, my boyfriend has pet tarantulas, which I know people think is weird, and it is weird. It's fine. It's honestly fine. But he feeds them crickets, and sometimes the crickets chirp. And it's distracting. I'm back later in the day to give an update. It is almost 3:30 and I have written a grand total of 4 pages. 4 pages. Front back, 4 out of this many. It's not going great. All in all, thus far, this has been a lot harder than I expected. It's interesting, it's giving me a reason to think about how exactly these writing challenges work for poetry, because I'm used to, if I'm trying to write a lot for like NaNoWriMo or whatever, or trying to just be really disciplined, trying to get out the words, it's usually in the context of writing fiction. And for me, just speaking personally, it works really well for fiction. But I'm realizing that my process with poetry is very different, and basically the writing and the revising are not like two separate processes. It's really like I write very slowly, and then once I have a poem on the page, I'll already start to kind of revise it. And so it's hard. You know, the NaNoWriMo philosophy, which I keep thinking of because, again, that's my context for like trying to do like a challenging writing thing like this. The philosophy is to ignore your inner editor and just put words on the page. And I could do that today, you know, you can always put words on the page, but I feel like with poetry it's just going to end up being like stream of consciousness, like useless. And I mean, I was hoping to get at least a couple of decent poems out of this. But I am bound and determined to actually complete the challenge and fill this notebook, even if none of it is any good. I just want to see what happens, right? Because I'm getting discouraged after 4 pages, but like maybe it will take filling the entire thing for me to come up with a decent poem or 2, and that's fine. So maybe you can hear I've got a little bit of music playing. I'm trying to get in the zone. So I have all my supplies. I have 2 candles burning. You can't really see them. I have a nice scented candle. I have multiple writing utensils. I also have Ginsberg's collected poems. I think this is everything. Huge book that I've been working through. I like to have poetry when I'm writing. You know, when I take a break, give myself a few minutes of a break. I like to read some poetry, just get me kind of in the mood for poetry. So like I said, it's about 3:30. I'm gonna check in soon. Maybe a half an hour, maybe an hour. We'll see. Time for another check-in. So it's been about an hour, 45 minutes. I've written 4 more pages, bringing my count from 4 to 8. This is what's left. This is what I've done. Why was I so overconfident about this? I really thought that this would be like fun. Writing, you know, why does it always seem like it's gonna be fun? It's not fun. Sorry, the lighting keeps changing, you know? That's how you know it's a vlog. Time is passing, the clock is ticking, light is changing. And I've written 8 pages, so. But that's 8 more than 0. I also have my writing thing at 6. Writing thing, but it's like mostly a chatting thing. So I was really kind of hoping I would finish before 6 o'clock, which now seems insane. That's obviously not going to happen. Don't know why I thought I could do that. But we'll see. Cheating in an effort to fill pages. I'm finding that my line breaks are getting a lot shorter. These are some Eileen Miles style line breaks. So sick of my own voice, you know? So, it's about 5:30. I have written like this many pages, and I'm giving up on this challenge. Hi, I'm back a couple of days later to tell you about what happened because I gave up on the challenge and I also gave up on the vlog. Now, I'm finding that vlogging is pretty interesting. It raises some interesting questions about what you should or shouldn't or want to or don't want to share about your life online, because in a vlog you're walking people through your day, and your day is pretty personal. Anything can happen. And ultimately, I've decided I do not really want to share the specifics, but basically, I got some disappointing news in the afternoon, late afternoon, on the day that I was trying to do this challenge. And I didn't really feel like writing anymore, and I didn't really feel like filming anymore. And I'm really, really okay with that, and I want to talk a little bit about why. On the one hand, I'm someone who really believes in discipline. I really believe in pushing yourself. If you wait until you're inspired, you're not going to write very much. You're not going to be inspired every day. You're probably not even going to be inspired every week. It's important to write when you don't feel like writing. But it's also important to know when to throw in the towel, because writing is an extremely mental act. It takes a lot of mental energy, and if you're not in a good mental space, I mean, that's where the writing comes from. So you're probably not going to be very productive. And often, it's just not very efficient. It's not always efficient to try to push yourself to write when you're really, really not in a good headspace for it. And so there's this tricky psychological skill of knowing, am I just feeling a little lazy? I don't want to use the word lazy, but like, is it or is it not a good idea to push myself is a really, really tough question. And I think it really, really applies to writing, but like it also applies to just like everything, right? And I gotta say, I honestly think I'm pretty good at both. I think I'm pretty good at pushing myself to write. I also think I'm pretty good at knowing when it's just not gonna happen and it's time to just call it quits. So I'm perfectly fine with losing this challenge. I still wrote like 15 pages of poetry. It's a lot of poetry to have written in a day. I think I got one decent poem out of it. And it was a real challenge to spend basically an entire day focused on trying to write. And I want to talk a little bit about what that felt like. Because it was a pretty slow process as compared to fiction. And I think it was a slow process because I was really just getting very sick of my own voice. I'm at a place right now in my poetry where I think it's not that I don't like my own style, it's just that I'm very jealous of other people's styles. I'm very jealous of the things that I see other people doing that I don't think I'm very good at, essentially weaknesses. I'm jealous of people who have an unusual way of wording things, but are able to do so without it being confusing. I tend to use really, really simple sentences, and sometimes I'm envious of people whose sentences are more complex. I'm probably the most jealous of people who seem to have an ability to write really great descriptions with just great word choices and attention to sound. I just think I have a tendency lately to be pretty abstract and conceptual, and I really want to have more descriptive language, more sensory language, just more interesting verbs and nouns. I'm starting to kind of hate my own writing. It's all part of the process. I think it happens to everyone. And similarly to like pushing yourself or not pushing yourself, there's this question of like, to what extent should I get bogged down with worrying about my own weaknesses, or they could perhaps be better called tendencies, because I think there is something useful in saying like, wow, I have a tendency to write this way. What would happen if I try to fight that tendency? If I always write with long lines, what's going to happen if I try to use short lines? If I'm always kind of using simple sentences, what happens if I try to make them more complex? I think that's a useful exercise, but I also think that it can be kind of paralyzing if you worry too much about it. So yeah, no easy answers. Writing is tough. Writing is a very psychological act. It's a very mental act of balancing and pushing yourself but not too hard, fighting your tendencies but not too much. It's tough. So I still found this totally, totally worthwhile. I might continue it on a different day. I probably will not pick up a blank notebook. This was way harder than I expected. I'll probably just see if I can finish filling this notebook that I started with on a different day, maybe in a month or two. But it was totally worthwhile, even though I didn't complete the challenge. I failed. Sometimes it's okay to fail.